Good afternoon, class. So, today we will talk about the endocrine system. Okay, gin-combine ko na ang module 12 and 13 ata ni siya, ang endocrine. Ang endocrine part 1 kag ang part 2. So, isa na lang ni siya ha. Ito siya gani. So, module 12 and 13 ni siya. Combine na ni siya sa isa ka video. Okay, so ang endocrine system natin, it secretes hormones that travel through your blood. Okay? So, compared to your heart or brain or other organs, endocrine system organs and glands are kinda small and lumpy. And instead being all nestled together, yung ginamin sina nga daw pareho sa aton lungs, di ba? Ara tanan, daw combine sila, ara dang heart, aton lungs, ang diaphragm, di ba? Combine sila. Ang aton yung endocrine system is scattered all over the place ang aton body. So, from your brain to your throat, to your kidneys, to your genitals, may ara endocrine system. Okay? So, ang gland is just any structure that makes and secretes a hormone. Okay? So, we have 4 classes of chemical messengers. Okay? So, ano danay ang chemical messenger? It allows cells to communicate with each other to regulate body activities. Okay? So, ang chemical messenger sa muna ang ga-regulate sang body activities naton. Okay, so mayara kita 4 classes. So ina siya is ang endocrine, paracrine, autocrine, and neurotransmitter. So ang endocrine, so makita mo di sa examples ko is ang blood to bloodstream, meaning these are the ones that's in the blood to release into the bloodstream. Amo na siya nga klase ng chemical messenger. So ang paracrine naman, so, release in and act on neighboring cells. So, tandaan, neighboring cells na siya nga release in and act on neighboring cells. So, example sang paracrine is ang histamine. Ang sa endocrine is ang epinephrine. So, ang autocrine naman is release and get on itself or the cell that has secreted them. Amo na siya ang autocrine. So, autocrine stimulates the cell that originally secreted it and sometimes nearby cells of same type. So, di ba self, kayo same lang sa iya, ang iya gin secrete. So, stimulates the cell that originally secretes it. And sometimes nearby cells of the same type. So, example is ang WBC or ang white blood cell naton. Next is the neurotransmitter. So, neurotransmitter secreted by the neurons. So, to activate another neuron, muscle cell or glandular cell, secreted into a synaptic cleft. Or example sina is ang acetylcholine or ang ginatawag ni siyang ang neurotransmitter naton sa chemical messenger activate another neuron. Okay. So, ang hormones naton, so hormones are chemical messengers. They travel to target tissues and exert some biological effects. So, how do hormones bind to their target cells? Paano ang hormones magbind sa target cells? So, chemically, most hormones are either made of amino acid, including their more complex structures like peptides or proteins, or they are derived from lipids like cholesterol. So, because a hormone's chemical structure determines if it's water-soluble or lipid-soluble. Okay, so solubility is important because your cell membranes are made of lipids. Okay? So, aton cell membranes are made of lipids. So, may kita sa lipid-soluble hormones kag water-soluble hormones. Okay, so ang lipid-soluble hormones are non-polar, insoluble in water-based fluids, therefore attached to binding proteins for transport through bloodstream and protection of hormones. So, degraded slowly and not rapidly eliminated from circulation. So, example is insulin. So, ang insulin directly enters inside the cell membrane. Okay, so ang lipid-soluble hormones, dasig sila maka-enter sa aton cell membranes because our cell membranes are made of lipids. Okay, so next is water-soluble. So, water-soluble, polar na siya. Many circulate as free hormones. So, small molecules attached to binding proteins to avoid being filtered out. Okay, so broken down relatively quickly with half-life or minutes or hours or short-term effects only. So, ang water-soluble, hindi siya dasig maka-enter sa aton cell membrane is because hindi siya lipid. Okay, so needs ang aton water-soluble hormones mag-bind sa receptor in order nga maka-signal siya sa sulod sa aton cell membrane. Okay? Kaya hindi siya yung lipid mo. Kaya diba, hindi siya kasulod. It's because water-soluble siya. Hindi siya yung lipid-soluble. Ang lipid is dasig siya makasulod sa aton cell membrane because our cell membrane is made of lipids. Okay? So, types of stimuli regulating the hormone release. Okay? So, we have the humoral. Humoral, so ang tatlo danay ha, humoral, neuronal, and hormonal. So sa humoral, secretion of hormones in direct response to changing blood levels of ions and nutrients. So example sina, ang ginamin nga humoral is for example nagnubo aton nga calcium. Calcium blood levels ang aton sa blood naton ha nag-decrease. Okay, so ang matabo sina ang PTH will begin bone resorption. Bone resorption meaning, makuha siya sang calcium sa aton nga blood, ang PTH, ang parathyroid hormone, para ibutang sa blood to increase the blood calcium levels. Then, mabalik na sa normal aton nga body. Diba? So, may mga sakit man na siya kung sobrahan, too much resorption sang calcium sa bone. Okay? So, hindi tayo mag-tackle sina. So, neuronal, is the nervous system is going to stimulate hormones to be secreted. So, example, the release of adrenaline or ang ginatawag niya epinephrine during a fight or flight response. Meaning, the sympathetic nervous system signals the adrenal glands to secrete this hormone when perceiving danger. For example, ang kakatabo nga, so, paging kulbaan ka, may ara, makawat, or may galaga sa imo, di ba may ginatawag kita nga adrenaline rush? So, amo ni siya, diri na siya sa neuronal, di ba? Kung adrenaline rush kita, gulpi ta, ang masakwat ta, ang hindi ta masakwat normally, masakwat ta, gulpe, doon mo na siya. Okay? So, next is hormonal. Hormones is secreted to stimulate the secretion of other hormones. So, for example, hypothalamus. So, hypothalamus that is going to release the hormone that is going to target the pituitary gland. So, ang sa hypothalamus, ipagwa niya ang thyrotropin-releasing hormone ng TRH. Pakadto sa pituitary gland, which nga release ang pituitary gland sang thyroid-stimulating hormone or ang TSH. So, this hormone will release that target this will release hormones that target their endocrine glands. So, endocrine glands nga na is ang thyroid gland. Okay, so ang thyroid gland will release T3 and T4 which increase your basal metabolic rate or ang ga-regulate sang aton nga, ang thyroid gland ga-regulate sang aton nga body's metabolism. Okay, so basal metabolic rate. So, the amount of energy your body needs to maintain homeostasis. Okay, so we have major mechanisms that maintain hormone levels in blood. Okay, so we have the negative feedback, so prevents further hormone secretion once a set point is achieved. And positive feedback, self-promoting system whereby the stimulation of hormone secretion increases over time. And we have receptors. So, proteins where the hormones bind. So, ba ko gina, diba, sa water-soluble, gabind siya may mga receptor da sa aton cell membrane. So, dira sila gabind in order for them to get through our cell membrane. So, receptor site, location, and cell where hormones bind. Each characteristics allow only a specific type of hormone to bind it. And specificity, tendency for each type of hormone to bind to one type of receptor. Okay, so we have classes of receptors. We have the nuclear receptors, often found in the nucleus where the lipid-soluble hormones bind. So, cannot respond immediately because it takes time to produce the messenger RNA and the protein. Diba mo nagyatawag sa biochem, the transcription phase. Okay, so hormone response elements, finger-like projections that recognize and bind specific nucleotide sequence in DNA found in receptors that bind to DNA. So, transcription factor forms from combination of hormone and its receptors. So, the hormone receptor complex activates genes which in turn activate the DNA ni siya to produce the mRNA. Diba? May duplication and transcription kita. Okay, so the messenger mRNA, the messenger RNA increases the synthesis of certain proteins that produce the target cell's response. So membrane-bound receptors, proteins that extends across the cell membrane where water soluble hormones bind. So where with hormones binding sites exposed on cell membrane's outer surface activate responses in two ways. So alter the activity of G proteins or alpha, beta, gamma at the inner surface of cell membrane. The alpha subunit of G protein can bind to ion channels and cause them to open or change the rate of synthesis of intracellular mediators such as ang CAMP. Next is alter the activity of intracellular enzymes directly. Okay? So these activators elicit second messengers that activate the cellular response referred to as a second messenger system. Okay, so diba sa water-soluble hormones, binding lang ni siya gakatabo ang may mga second messenger. So has a signal amplification, which means that a single hormone activates many second messenger, each of which activates enzymes that produce enormous amount of final product. So we have the pituitary gland. So ang pituitary gland naton is a hormone secreting gland that sits below the hypothalamus. So, as you can see kung amo ni siya ang aton, di ba, hypothalamus. So, gas sits below lang na siya sa hypothalamus na to. And then, kung i-zoom in mo muna, i-itsura. Okay? So, we have the, sa aton nga, pituitary, mayara kita sa anterior and posterior. So, ang sa anterior, ang sa front, ang posterior, ang sa likod. So, this is the anterior and this is the posterior. So, depende kung di ni gatubang atong drawing. Okay? So, di ba, rest na siya at the cilia turcica, which is controlled by the hypothalamus. Ang hypothalamus, a small region situated directly above the brainstem. So, it is made up of a collection of nuclei with variety of functions. But in general, it's involved in 2H. So, ang 2H nga na is ang homeostasis and the hormones. Okay, so the pituitary gland is also sometimes called the master gland, ha? So, because it not only secretes many important hormones, but it also regulates the activity of the hormone-secreting glands. Okay? So, the pituitary gland consists of two lobes. So, ang two lobes nga na is ang anterior and the posterior. Okay? So, the anterior responsible for the release of a number of hormones that have widespread effects throughout the body. Okay? So, ang example sa anterior danay kita is the growth hormone, which is involved in growth, of course. From the growth hormone itself, nga ngalan, involved na siya sa aton growth. So, the follicle-stimulating hormone ng FFH plays a role in development and reproduction. And luteinizing hormone or ang LH, essential for testosterone production and reproduction. And adenocorticotropic hormone or ACTH involves in stress and free responses. And the thyroid-stimulating hormone or ang TSH, di ba na-mention ko na gina ang TSH? So, important in healthy metabolism. Okay? So, di ba, halin siya sa thyroid gland man ang thyroid-stimulating hormone. Haba ko gina. So, prolactin promotes milk production in females. So, increase luteinizing hormone in males. So, melanocyte or stimulating hormone or MSH, increase melanin production to make skin dark in color. Okay? So, maraman na sa modules ninyo, rephrase ko lang para maintindihan nyo pa mas lalo. Okay? So, ang posterior pituitary is dual lang na ang hormone. So, it secretes two hormones but does not synthesize them. Instead, they are synthesized by the hypothalamus and then sent to the posterior pituitary for release to the bloodstream. Okay? So, we have the oxytocin, important roles in facilitating childbirth and lactation. So, ginagaan, oxytocin sometimes ang isa ka pregnant woman kung in labor na para mapadasig, mapagwa ang baby, di ba? Facilitating the childbirth and lactation para mag-promote man sang para dasig magwa ang gatas sang mother. So, antidiuretic hormone or ang ADH or ang ginatawag nga vasopressin. So, controls urine output and regulate blood pressure. So, ang ginatawag sini, another term naton sa is anti-ihi. Diba? Anti-diuretic. Kaya kung diuretic hormone or diuretic ng mga bulong, mga diuretics is gapaihi na siya, diba? Like ang furosemide, gapaihi na siya. While ang aton nga vasopressin or ang anti-diuretic hormone, tawag niya siya anti-ihi para hindi masyado magpagwa ihi. Kaya syempre kung maubusan ka fluid, ihi ka nga ihi, madulaan sang water in mo body, pwede ka ma-hypotension. So, siya ang ga-control sang aga-regulate sang aton man blood pressure. Okay? Ang aton ADH. Okay, so we have the thyroid gland. Okay, thyroid gland function is to secrete thyroid hormones, regulate rate of metabolism, diba? Ang bakugina, the basal metabolic rate of the body. Okay? Okay. So, ano na ni siya nga, I think 14. This is module 14. 13 ata, 14. Basta part 2 ni siya sa aton nga 13 ata ni siya. Ang bako nilipat na ko. So, scan through nyo na lang. Basta part 2 ni siya sa endocrine system. So, thyroid gland. So, function to secrete thyroid hormones, regulate rate of metabolism. So, ang gland nga na is ang thyroid gland. So, ang ginasekrete niya nga hormone is ang thyroid hormones or ang thyroxine, thyronin, and calcitonin. So, ang thyroid hormones, ang target tissue niya is most cells of the body, and calcitonin primarily ang bone. Kaya diba dira gastor man sang calcium. Diba may calcium sa aton bone. So, response ang aton nga thyroid hormones increase metabolic rates essential for normal process of growth and maturation. And calcitonin decreases the rate of bone breakdown, prevents large increase in blood calcium levels following a meal. So, yung mga disorders man na siya kung too much calcium sa aton blood, kita ginatawag nga if too much calcium sa blood, it's called hypercalcemia. Hypercalcemia. Kung too much calcium sa blood, hypercalcemia, and too low calcium sa blood is ang hypocalcemia. I-change nyo lang ang hyper and hypo. Okay? Okay. So, next is so, additional facts lang na siya. Okay. So, next is the hypothyroidism. So, sakit ni siya sa thyroid hormone, ha? Ang hypothyroidism. Diba, yung thyroid gland. So, diba, atong thyroid gland sa atong throat dapit. So, ang thyroid gland doesn't make enough hormones sa hypothyroidism or too low of nubo ang aton nga thyroid hormones. Okay. So, muna siya ang hypothyroidism. Okay, so lack of thyroid hormones. Okay, so symptoms niya sang thyroid hormones is weight gain, unexplained. So, matingala ka, wala ka man gakaon damo, pero dasing ka magtambok. 'Di ba? So, isa na ka symptoms ang hypothyroidism. So, trouble tolerating cold, dasig sila malamigan, even though init na lamigan man sila Japon. So, fertility problems. May mga fertility problems ni ang mga person nga may hypothyroidism. So, dry hair and hair loss, swelling of the thyroid gland, or ang goiter na. So, ang goiter is gahabok na di ang thyroid gland kaya swell up na. So, ginakuha man na siya may mga operations kita surgery para ma-remove ang goiter. Okay, so mayara ako digin sulat nga Hashimoto disease. It's because kumbaga nag-contribute ni siya nga nagkaka-hypothyroidism. So, Hashimoto disease is an autoimmune disorder that can cause hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid. Okay? So, amo na siya ang ga-contribute kung nga hypothyroidism isa sa mga ga-contribute. Okay. So, damo man sa asang factors nga may hypothyroidism. So, pwede nga by genes or naga-inflame ang thyroid mo na hindi siya ka-produce sang thyroid hormones nga dapat sa aton body. So, next, we have the cretinism. So, under man na sa Japan sa hypothyroidism. Okay, so, sa cretinism, so occurs in infants na siya. Hypothyroidism that occurs in infant, which is characterized by mental retardation, short stature, or nubo, and abnormally formed skeletal structures. Okay? So, wala sila gataas. Muna sila, infants. So mga may madami sa deformities and retardation, mental retardation. And sa maxedema occurs in adults, characterized by extremely lethargic, having a hard time performing routine tasks, and accumulation of fluid and other molecules and subcutaneous tissues of skin. Okay, so hypothyroidism ni siya. Hypothyroidism, wala ko na nasulatang M. Hypothyroidism is overactive thyroid, meaning to gadamo kung sa hypo is kulang aton thyroid hormones, aton ang hyperthyroidism naman is galalapaw ang thyroid hormones naton. So overactive thyroid hormones. Okay, so symptoms is weight loss despite of decreased appetite. So, maskin ano niya kaon, wala siya ga tambok, sige niya man Japon weight loss. Maskin, sige siya kaon. So, niwang lang gid siya. So, pero hindi ta pag-judge sa mga niwang, it's because niwang lang gid sila. Pero ang may mga hyperthyroidism, so possible, kung matingala, kagali nga, grabe ka magkaon, nasing grabe ka magkaon, pero wala ka gatambok. Or weight loss, sige mo lang nubo sang kilo mo. Amoy na siya. Then, rapid or irregular heartbeat, ang signs and symptoms, trouble tolerating heat. So, sa hyperthyroidism, may ara man kita associated sa hyperthyroidism, associated ang Graves' disease. Diba? Sa hypo is Hashimoto disease. Ang sa hyperthyroidism is Graves' disease. So, sa Graves' disease, an autoimmune disease that causes hyperthyroidism occurs when immune system produces abnormal proteins that are similar in structures and functions to thyroid stimulating hormone because of overstimulating the thyroid gland. So, sa Graves' disease, may kita ginatawag nga exophthalmia. Okay? Exophthalmia. So, meaning the bulging of eyes sa mga patient nga may hyperthyroidism, dumudlo, hindi la mata. So, exophthalmia. Okay, exophthalmia, bulging of eyes. Okay? So, next we have the parathyroid glands. Sa parathyroid glands, 4 tiny glands embedded in posterior wall. So, sa posterior wall of the thyroid gland. So, release parathyroid hormone or ang PTH, which is considered more important in calcium ions regulating or calcium regulation. Okay, ang parathyroid, di ba na example, kumangina sa increased blood calcium, decreased blood calcium, di ba nag-produce sa mga PTH? Please review that. So, conditions, So, ang hormone na is ang parathyroid hormone. Target tissue is bone and kidney. So, response increase rate of bone breakdown by osteoclast. Increases vitamin D synthesis, essential for maintenance of normal blood calcium levels. So, conditions associated with parathyroid, ang hyperparathyroidism. So, meaning taas, abnormally high rate of PTH or parathyroid hormone secretion, usually caused by tumor in the gland. So, results to easily fractured bones, fatigue, muscle weakness, and kidney stones. Okay? So, hypoparathyroidism, meaning nubo naman, abnormally low rate of PTH secretion may result from injury or surgical removal of thyroid and parathyroid gland. So, characterized by frequent muscle cramps and tetanus. Okay, tetanus, diba? Munang galakjo, from may mga kung napilasta, muna siyang tetanus. So, adrenal glands. So, adrenal glands are two small glands located superior to each kidney. So, ang adrenal medulla and adrenal cortex. So, ang ginasekret na hormones ng adrenal medulla is the epinephrine, mostly. Some norepinephrine. So, target tissue is the heart, blood vessels, liver, fat cells. Response increases cardiac output, increases blood flow to skeletal muscles and heart, increases release of glucose and fatty acids into the blood. In general, prepares body for physical activity. Then the adrenal cortex. So, ang hormones niya secrete is ang mineralocorticoids or ang aldosterone. Okay? And glucocorticoids or ang cortisol, and the adrenal androgens. Okay, so ang target tissue sa aton aldosterone is the kidneys, to lesser degree intestine and sweat glands. Glucocorticoids, most tissue. Examples na isang liver, fat, skeletal muscle, and immune tissues. And adrenal androgens is most tissues. Okay? So, increased rate of sodium transport in blood, increased rate of potassium secretion, secondarily favor water retention ang sa aldosterone. Ang response niya ang sa cortisol naman naton, ang response, increase fat protein breakdown, increase glucose synthesis from amino acids, increase blood nutrients level, inhibit inflammation and immune response. Ang adrenal androgens naman, insignificant, meaning in males, increase, meaning wala, insignificant in males, increase female sexual drive, growth of pubic and axillary hair. So, mostly sa female. So, ari gali ha, ang renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system o ang RAAS. Okay nga ginatawag. So, this system is activated when the blood pressure drops. So, once mag-drop aton nga blood pressure, ang RAAS nga na or ang renin, angiotensin, aldosterone nag-activate. Okay. So first, ang renin. Ang renin nga na is released from the kidneys. Okay? From the kidneys. So stimulate conversion of angiotensinogen. Okay? Angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1 in liver. Okay, so nagiging ang angiotensinogen, nagiging angiotensin 1. Okay? So in lungs, angiotensin 1 sa lungs sa liver ni siya na-convert na ang angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1 sa liver, and sa lungs ang angiotensin nga 1 yan na ini siya, 'di ba? Ang angiotensin 1 converts angiotensin 2. So, ang angiotensin 1, naging 2 na siya by the use of angiotensin converting enzyme or ang ACE inhibitor nga na. Then, ang angiotensin 2 is a potent vasoconstrictor and causes release of aldosterone. Okay? Then, once nga mag-okay na, tapos na sila di sa babaw, ang blood pressure ma-increase na. Okay? Para sa mga hypotension. Okay, so gabagsak ang blood para ni sa mga gabagsak ang blood pressure or ang hypotension. Okay? Next is the pancreas. Pancreas so has pancreatic islets or ang ginatawag nga islets of Langerhans. So may ara na sila sang ang pancreas naton may ara three cell types that are vital in regulation of blood levels of glucose. So, ang ginatawag ta sina nga alpha cells, beta cells, and delta cells. Okay, so ang alpha cell secretes glucagon. Ang beta cell secretes insulin. And then, delta cell secretes somatostatin. Okay? So, ang pancreas, ang hormone sa ginasekret niya sina isang insulin kag ang glucagon. Targets ang insulin is especially liver, skeletal muscle, adipose tissue. Sa glucagon is ang primarily liver. Okay? So, response sang insulin is increases uptake and use of glucose and amino acids. And glucagon increase breakdown of glycogen and release of glucose into the circulatory system. Okay? So, sa pancreas gali, may ara man kita nga like sakit or ang yatawag nga pancreatitis. Okay, so ang pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas na siya ha. Pancreatitis. Butangan talang itis always. Pancreatitis. So, inflammation of pancreas na siya. So, ang isang pancreas, ang function niya as exocrine ha, exo is produce digestive enzymes, helps break down some food. Pero ang sa endocrine niya nga function sa pancreas is ang secretion of insulin and glucagon. Okay, so ang somatostatin responds to food intake. Okay, so inhibits secretion of insulin and glucagon. Also inhibits gastric tract activity. Okay. So, if ever nga gusto nyo ma-send lang ko about sa pancreatitis, actually wala, mandigin man siya about sa pancreatitis, pero may send ako nga notes sa aton nga GC, sang daw ubra-ubra ko lang na siya before, nga mga signs and symptoms, causes ng pancreatitis, pero focus lang tadi sa pancreas, okay, sa mga hormones. So, i-add on ko lang about sa pancreatitis. So, condition associated with pancreas. So, acidosis, reduced pH of body fluids below normal. So, associated with breakdown of lipids, releasing enough fatty acids and ketones when body glucose level are very low. So, hyperglycemia, meaning ang glycemia is ang sugar, hyperglycemia, very high blood glucose level. So, taas ang sugar sa aton nga blood. Diabetes mellitus, so ang DM, inability to regulate glucose within normal range. So, results of exaggerated appetite, excess urine production, dehydration, thirst, and fatigue. And has two types. So, we have type 1, diabetes mellitus, occurs when too little insulin is secreted from pancreas. And type 2, DM, caused by either too few insulin receptors or defective receptors do not respond normally to insulin or target cells, ang DM2. Okay? So, insulin shock. So, insulin, di ba, kung may kita diabetes mo nang ginasaksak ta para ma-regulate or gina-inject sa patient para ma-regulate liwat aton nga blood sugar, di ba? Para kung may mga nga taas sugar nga patient, need nila insulin para mag-normalize liwat aton or magnubo ang blood sugar. So, insulin shock. So, too much insulin is present in blood. Occurs when a diabetic injected too much insulin or has not eaten after an insulin injection, may result to disorientation, convulsion, and loss of consciousness. So, meaning ang insulin shock, kung maging nurses na ka mo in the future or mag-duty ka mo, ang insulin never gid na siya or dapat tama lang gid. Tsakto ang amount nga ginapangayo kay Mara na sa sang daw insulin chart kung pila, kung example 350 sugar today. So may na siya sang chart nga depende sa doctor nga gina-follow nga injecta is 2 units lang sang insulin. So i-follow nyo na siya kung anong ara sa chart or anong doctor's order. So hindi ka mong pabuang nga 300 ang sugar sa patient, gaan nyo siya 10. So possible magkaka-insulin shock na siya or too much insulin ang ginhatag nyo. Kag example, kung wala siya kakaon, magulpi lang na siya. So, may result to disorientation and convulsion. Diba? So, malipong ang patient naton. Okay. So, reproductive organs include testes in males and ovaries in females. So, hormone releasing is stimulated by the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. Okay. So, aton sa reproductive organs, aton, di ba, ang testes, ovaries, uterus, ovaries, inflamed tissues. So, ang hormone niya, ginasikret sina is ang testosterone. Testosterone sa testes, ovaries, estrogens, and progesterone. Uterus, ang uterus, ovaries, inflamed tissues is ang prostaglandins. Okay, so amo ni man siya ang target tissues, most tissue ang target tissues nila nga tatlo. Then, ang response, ang testes, the aids of sperm cell reproduction, and sa mga reproductive organs, kung ang sa lalaki lang ha ang testes ha, wala testes ang babae. So, ovaries, aid in uterine or mammary gland development and function. Sa external genitalia structure, secondary sexual characteristics, sexual behavior, and menstrual cycle. And ang prostaglandins mediate inflammatory response, increase uterine contractions, and ovulations. So, ang thymus naman naton, ang thymus lies in upper part of thorax. So, most important early in life for normal development of immune system in infant. Okay, so ang thymus, ang hormone niya sina is ang thymosin. Target tissue, immune tissue. So, response promotes immune system development and function. Okay, sa immune system. Pineal gland. So, small penicone-shaped structure located in thalamus plays an important role in the onset of puberty. Okay? So, ang pineal gland, mo niya siya. So, melatonin ang hormone niya ginasekret sa pineal gland. So, target tissues is among others or ang hypothalamus. So, response inhibits secretions of gonadotropin-releasing hormone, thereby inhibiting reproduction. Okay, di ba? Sa puberty ni siya, onset of puberty ang pineal gland. So, your pineal gland is a tiny endocrine gland in the middle of your brain that helps regulates body circadian rhythm by secreting the hormone melatonin. Okay, so other hormones secreted by cells in lining of stomach and intestine stimulate the production of digestive juices from stomach, pancreas, and liver. So hormones occurs when food is present in the digestive system. Hormones from small intestine helps in regulation of rate of which food passes, so stomach into the intestine. Prostaglandin, intercellular signal that are widely distributed in body and play a role in inflammation. Okay? So next we have the So other hormones man Japon nakat ko lang. So, ang prostaglandins mo ni iya continuation, released by damaged tissue causing blood vessel dilation, localized swelling and pain, causes relaxation of smooth muscles, so example, dilation of blood vessels, and contraction of smooth muscles. So, example is ang uterine contraction during delivery. So, medically used to induce abortion. So, produced by platelets for normal blood clotting. Next is aspirin inhibits prostaglandin synthesis. Number 3 is the atrial, other hormones atrial natriuretic hormone or ANH, atrial natriuretic peptide ANP, secreted by the right atrium of the heart in response to elevate blood pressure. So inhibits sodium reabsorption in kidneys, resulting to more urine to be secreted. Diba? Ang raas. Para kung example, pero ang raas sa blood mag-regulate. Once magnubo, ma-activate lang ang raas. So, erythropoietin secreted in response to reduce oxygen levels in kidneys, acts on bone marrow to increase production of RBC. So, ang erythropoietin, important din siya para mag-increase ang production of RBC. So, injectables, kung sa hospital ka, may mga injectables nga erythropoietin. So, gina-inject ni siya if ang patient, so hormone, ini ang erythropoietin ha, pero may, mayara, gina-inject nga erythropoietin or ang ipoietin na siya ang brand name. So, damo man actually brands. Pero for example lang, ang erythropoietin injection is gina-inject na siya sa mga patient nga kulang or hindi masyado taas ila RBC or red blood cells. So, for example, ang mga gina-dialysis nga patient, after sang dialysis nila, is gina-inject ina ang erythropoietin injection sa ila para magtaas ila red blood cells. Kaya diba kung sa dialysis, ginasala ang dugo. So, tendency, may manubo gid na iya nga red blood cells. Kitungod, ga-transfer gintiluan sang machine, di ba? May mga transfer nga gakatabo sa dialysis, ga-transfer ang blood sa machine, then balik naman sa machine sa patient, pero may tendency manubo gid na iyang nga red blood cell. So hindi ni siya ginamin kung ang erythropoietin is hormone lang ni siya, ha, may erythropoietin kita sa aton body, pero kumbaga sa iba niya tao, para mag-boost up pag ilang red blood cells is they need to be injected sang erythropoietin. Okay? So, human chorionic human chorionic gonadotropin or HCG, similar in structure and function of the luteinizing hormone. So, secreted by placenta to maintain pregnancy and stimulate breast development. Okay? So, the disease and disorders of endocrine system is condition diabetes insipidus, or due to lack of ADH results in excessive urination. So, ang antidiuretic hormone, ha, due to lack of antidiuretic hormone. Okay, so ang diabetes insipidus, hindi na siya the same sa diabetes mellitus or ang DM kagina, ha. So, ang diabetes insipidus is not the same as diabetes mellitus. Although, both conditions can increase thirst, intake of liquids and urination, but they are not related, ha. They're not related. DI and DM are not related. So, di ba sa diabetes mellitus, the level of glucose in your blood, ang ginatawag na blood sugar is too high. So, your kidneys try to remove the extra glucose by passing it to your urine. Okay, sa diabetes mellitus. Sa diabetes insipidus naman, is your blood glucose are normal, but your kidneys can't properly concentrate urine. Okay? So, ang kidneys naton sa diabetes insipidus cannot concentrate urine. Okay? So, the main complication sa diabetes insipidus is dehydration. Okay? So, which happens when your body loses too much fluid and electrolytes to work properly. Okay? So, diba, due to lack of anti-ihi diuretic hormone, ang anti-ihi, so, sige siya ihi. So, ano siya sa dehydration. Okay? Kaya excessive urination na gets. Okay? So, ang Hashimoto thyroiditis, muna siya nga bakugin ng Hashimoto disease, autoimmune disease in which thyroid hormone secretion can be decreased, metabolic rate is decreased, weight gain is possible, and activity levels are depressed. So, di ba Hashimoto sa hypothyroidism? And primary hyperparathyroidism naman, 90% of cases due to adenoma parathyroid gland causes blood PTH levels to increase above normal, elevate blood calcium levels, weaken bones, and possible muscular weakness. And Addison's disease, low levels of aldosterone and cortisol from adrenal cortex, low blood sodium levels, low blood pressure, and excessive urination. Gestational diabetes develops in pregnant women due to actions of human placenta lactogens. So, sometimes ang gestational or ang GDM, gestational diabetes, ang mother nga hindi siya pregnant, wala siya diabetes mellitus. So, kung sang na-pregnant na siya, or during her pregnancy, nagka-gestational. During the pregnancy, gestational diabetes. So, in some women, ang HPL overly desensitizes the woman's insulin receptors. So, causes elevated blood glucose level in the mother, and if left untreated, excessive fetal growth. So, meaning, ang mga babies, ang mga mother, nga may GDM kung wala na normalize ang or wala na regulate bala or pabayaan lang nila nga magsaka ila blood sugar levels during their pregnancy, ma-result sina ang babies nila is dako or mga big babies na nagalabot nakita sa mga 4.2 kilos. Amo na sila ang mga babies nga pag newborn gid pagwa, so dako sila and possible may mga disorders na like ila blood sugar elevated man or nubo dasig sila mahypo. Amo na siya ang mga GDM babies. Taas sila sugar mo na gina-monitor gina ila nga sugar every 12 hours, sometimes 12 hours depende sa pedya. So amo gina siya kaya it's because possible kung hindi mo ma-monitor ang ila sugar sa mga babies nga ang mother nila with gestational diabetes, mahypo ang baby. 'Di ba? Kung hindi mo mapakaon, so dapat i-feed mo pero hindi lang sang grabe gid. Dapat ma-feed mo gid ang baby, hindi siya magutom kay possible manubo iya nga blood sugar. Okay, so baby pa siya may diabetes na sa may mga muna sila. So may mga baby nga sometimes mga GDM babies. They have insulin injections na sa ilang nga maintenance. So some babies lang. So, effects on aging of endocrine system. Kung magtigulang, gradually decrease in growth hormone in people who do not exercise melatonin, reproductive hormones, thymosin, and thyroid hormones, slight decrease. Okay? So, parathyroid hormones increase if vitamin D and calcium decrease. So, there is an increase in type 2 diabetes mellitus in people with a familial tendency. Okay, so that's all lang sa aton nga duwa ka modules sang endocrine. Okay, so if there's any question, clarifications na confused pa, let me know, okay? Thank you.